The Subcommittee on State, Foreign Operations, and Related Programs will come to order. I want to welcome everyone to today's subcommittee hearing. Excuse me. Madam Secretary, thank you for appearing today to testify on the Administration's fiscal year 2012 budget request for the State Department and foreign assistance programs. I know last week was very busy for you, as are all the weeks, and for your committee, and I'm glad that we were able to get this hearing back on schedule today, and I appreciate it very much. The issues we'll discuss are critically important for U.S. national security. Our efforts in Afghanistan and Pakistan, Iraq must achieve clear objectives and demonstrate results. At the same time, we're all anxiously watching the rapidly unfolding events in the Middle East and North Africa. We must support efforts for reform in this region. Continued investments in democracy, promotion, and military assistance will be critical to maintaining peace in a very difficult environment. In our own hemisphere, drugs and human trafficking remain grave concerns. Powerful cartels continue to push narcotics through South and Central America into Mexico, bringing violence to our own backyard. In my home state of Texas, the violence in Mexico is spilling across the border. We must take action now. Even with all these serious issues we're facing around the world, as Admiral Mullen said it so well, our debt is the greatest threat to our national security. So we must make difficult choices today in order to protect the most critical diplomatic and development funding for the future. While it won't be easy, the Administration and the Congress must work together to make wise decisions to lead this country forward and insulate us from future threats. The State Foreign Operations Bill supports critical national security interests, but we can't continue to spend like we have in the past. I want to be clear that I remain committed to protecting our national security with investments abroad, while giving appropriate attention to our economic recovery here at home. While this Congress and the Administration still have a great deal of work to do, the State Foreign Operations portion of H.R. 1, the continuing resolution passed by the House a few weeks ago, was a first attempt to achieve the right balance. This bill prioritized the frontline states of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq, and key allies like Israel and Jordan. At the same time, H.R. 1 made significant cuts to programs we simply can't afford. Plans to increase State and USAID staff, support large multi-year commitments, and boost lending by international banks must be reconsidered. The hearing today is the subcommittee's first chance to hear how the Administration has prioritized its needs for fiscal year 2012. The biggest budget request totals $59.5 billion for the State Foreign Operations Subcommittee, which is almost $11 billion above the fiscal year 2010 enacted level. This funding level does include, for the first time, a separate account for the extraordinary cost of operating in the frontline states. I'd like to highlight several areas of the budget request that deserve the subcommittee's attention. The request for Iraq is billions of dollars more than the State Department and USAID spent in fiscal year 2010, but this is significantly less than the cost of keeping troops on the ground, and we recognize that. As the State Department prepares to become the lead agency in Iraq on October 1st, serious questions remain about States' capability to manage a program of this size and ensure the security of diplomatic and development staff. In Afghanistan, the Administration continues to focus on providing direct assistance to the government. The subcommittee will continue to watch this closely. We'll also be following how the Administration monitors and evaluates projects, because clear goals must be achieved so that the civilian effort complements the military activity. It's only through an integrated strategy that we will ensure that terrorists do not have safe havens to plan attacks on the United States. I'm concerned about security changes by the government of Afghanistan that could make the operating environment even more difficult for U.S. government employees and contractors. A reasonable agreement must be reached so that there's a successful transition to Afghan security forces, but counterinsurgency and development goals can't be put in jeopardy. In Pakistan, the United States continues to demonstrate its commitment to an enduring strategic partnership focused on economic, military, and police assistance to help root out extremists and support other critical investments. For our ally Israel, this budget includes more than $3 billion to help maintain a strong military presence in an increasingly volatile region. While the budget proposal does not include planned reductions for Colombia and Mexico, there's a continued focus on these countries and their neighbors in the region. The subcommittee needs to hear more about how the funding requested will sustain gains made in Colombia over the last decade and will help Mexico build the institutions it needs to forge a lasting front against the cartels. In closing, I want to thank the men and women of this country who are serving overseas, especially those placed in the most difficult circumstances. I also want to thank Secretary Clinton for her dedicated service to this nation. I believe that working together, we can maintain an effective and an efficient diplomatic and development capacity in key areas around the world. By justifying the total funding levels proposed in this budget simply will not be possible. I hope today will be the first of many conversations to determine how the United States can remain a leader in the world through a period of extraordinary political crisis and at the same time emerge quickly from our economic turmoil. In a moment, I'd like to turn to my esteemed ranking member, Mrs. Nita Lowy, for her opening statement. After that, I'll turn to Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Dix if they have opening statements. Then I'll call on members based on seniority and who is in attendance when the hearing was called to order. I'll alternate between majority and minority and ask that each member keep their questions to within 5 minutes. If the time permits, we'll have a second round of questions, and we have a light in front of the Secretary. I'll now turn to Mrs. Lowy for her opening remarks.